You are watching Co-op for Two, and this is your quick before you buy it for Suspects, the latest narrative detective mystery game. What is it? Who is it for? Let's start with a quick overview of how to play. In Suspects, you'll use your deductive skills to solve criminal mysteries using as few clues as possible. The game was designed by Guillaume Montiage, and the core box includes 3 independent cases by different authors, all set in the 1930s and starring an Agatha Christie-like heroine. The box suggests a playtime of about 90 minutes per case. Cases are one-shot experiences and are non-replayable. It was published in 2021 by Studio H, a French company. It's essentially a solo game, though the box suggests it can be played by 1 to 6 players making joint decisions, though potentially making different final guesses as to the solution to the mystery. It's a narrative detective mystery game. There's no luck or randomization. The only choices players make is in what order to read what clues. It has a very low complexity rule set, but depends on focused logical reasoning and deduction. Players are scored based on whether and how early they are able to answer the questions associated with each mystery. Players begin each of the 3 mystery cases in the core box by reading an introductory case summary that describes a criminal mystery. Included with the introduction to the case is a list of questions that must be answered by the end of the case, such as the identity of the murderer, murder weapon, and motive, along with a table showing how many points are awarded for answering each question depending on how early it was answered. The majority of the clues for each case are found on oversized cards, typically about 55 cards per case, that contain significant amounts of text and full-color illustrations of people, places, and items. Each clue card is identified by a number and may unlock additional clue card numbers you can retrieve and read in whatever order you choose. Each case may also include an additional document or 2 that may help your investigation, such as a full-page map or diagram. These documents will also provide access to additional clue cards. Gameplay is simple. Players collectively decide which clue card to retrieve and read next from the set of clues that have been referenced by the introduction and previously read clue cards. At any point in the game, players will have multiple options regarding which clue to look at next, and at any point players may write down their best guess at answering a case question, or even change their previous answers, noting how many clue cards they have seen when they make each guess. These will be checked at the end of the game. The earlier that the players were able to guess the right answer, the more points will be awarded. Some clue cards are only available when you have met certain conditions, such as having previously accessed clue cards with certain keywords or symbols. Other clue cards may need to be combined by visually aligning multiple cards, such as combining a fingerprint clue card with a suspect clue card to identify the source of a fingerprint. There's no time limit in the game. Players retrieve and read clue cards until there are no more to read, and must then write down their final answers to the questionnaire. Players then read a final narrative story that explains what happened in the case and score their answers. Your final score will depend on whether you answer questions correctly and how early you were able to guess the answers to each question. In these videos, we try to give you a very brief, concise, sort of summary mini review to help you decide whether this game is for you. And then we've got big, long review discussions and full playthroughs. This is a harder case. You can watch my 4 playthroughs of the 3 games in this box. There'll be no spoilers in this mini review. But instead of playing it, you could watch those. You could watch those after you play it. And you can watch my longer review, which is only about 30 minutes or so of the game. And I'm going to try to give you some idea of whether you should play this game, but I'm going to cheat a little in this video. I'm going to say this. It's a very cool system. It's got some new stuff that some of the other detective narrative games don't have, some little iterations on this idea that are interesting if you're a fan of this genre, especially from a game design perspective. It's got this interesting idea of giving you the questionnaire that you're going to have to answer at the end of the game right up front, and letting you try to answer it in the early stage of the game, middle stage of the game, and late stage of the game, and giving you more points. It's a clever idea. It's possible because unlike some of these other games, the scope is small enough that it's almost always who's the killer, what's the motive, what's the murder weapon type of thing. So it's not giving away too much by giving these questions. So that's a cool idea. That's rewarding you for being more efficient in following leads. It's got some cool new mechanics with these cards. Each case is a deck of cards, and some of the cards have physical lines that you can line up to have the game tell you whether something's a match. A fingerprint matches a person or something like that. It's sort of a very clever way to do an analog version of an app. So there's some cool mechanical things here. But I said I was going to cheat a little in this review, and that's because I'm going to tell you that I didn't have a great experience playing these three mysteries. I found them a little flat, shallow, and unconvincing, implausible. I wasn't happy with the solutions and the pace and the clues. For me, it was a frustrating experience. It was still enjoyable as a super fan of this genre. So if you're a super fan of the genre, that you're playing all of these games, get it and play it. It's definitely interesting enough to play. But I would say this. It's very hard to know. The people who play these games, you can have if you're in the right mood and you get on the same wavelength, you can have a great experience with a given case, and the same group could have a bad experience with it if they hit it on a different day. So I would say this. There aren't any reviews yet on BGG of other people who've played it, but if you're not sure, maybe wait a month or so. Wait till other people have played this game and have posted their thoughts on these cases. See if it turns out that everyone is in the same boat as I am in finding the cases unconvincing and frustrating and unsatisfying. Or see if I'm the outlier and these just didn't work for me for whatever reason. And not only that, I think it's quite possible that I may post some little tips on how, if I was starting these cases from scratch, what information would be useful for me to know that might avoid some bad experience. I would say, though, that I would not recommend this as a starting point for this genre. If you're interested in this genre, if you can stomach using an app, Chronicles of Crime is a great detective game to start with. If you want the analog experience and you're willing to do a little more reading and go for a little more fuller experience, then the Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective games are great. If you want a quick, more logic-y puzzle thing, maybe go for the small unlocked boxes, or maybe some of the escape room, Deckscape or Exit or whatever. I rarely recommend a game at more than 2 players for a co-op game, but I could see a small group, maybe 4, maybe even 5 people sitting around and having people just rifle through the set of clues on their own and think about these issues sort of on their own, and then collectively decide what clue to read next. So in that case, if you want to try one of these games with a larger player count, this might be the game for you. And I'll stop there, but let me know if you played it and you feel differently or you agree, and check out the BGG forums for opinions from others.